Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of manifesting versus like something that's supposed to happen when you come into this life.
Like pre-planning?
Like a pre-plan, yeah. And when we had our discussion earlier, you had some ideas about that, Joe, that you were talking about.
When, tonight?
No, the last time we talked.
Oh, a month ago?
Yeah, you don't remember a month ago?
I don't remember 10 minutes ago. Well, actually, and I just mentioned it to Gladys, I just came back from an Afterlife conference in Phoenix, and one of the things we talked about was pre-planning and destiny, and they talked a lot about reincarnation too, which was pretty fascinating. I think basically we do have a plan before we come to this plane of existence, and it may play out differently. It doesn't necessarily have to be, exact. I mean, we have free will, which is very important, but we do come here with lessons to learn that are pre-planned. And I also believe that they block out certain situations in our lives where if we haven't learned by a particular time, we can use a particular event. I've learned over the last year, I think when we come into this life, they'll block out certain health issues that at a point during our lives, if we need to learn, some particular type of lesson, like I just said, the health issue can be used for that purpose. If you've already learned a particular lesson, or what you have an effect on someone else, because we're all interconnected, they might not use that health issue and move on to something else. So I think that's one of the big things to kind of like block it out. It's like do pre-planning, like a wedding or putting together some type of an event. You can block out time and say, all right, we'll fill that in later in case we have to if things change.
Okay, I hope the afterlife's not like planning a wedding.
Yeah.
If it's that stressful, I'll just stay here.
Well, actually, it's pre-life. It's pre-life, and it's all, well, obviously, and it's not. Once on the other side, there's no past, present, or future. Everything works together at the same time. But it's pre-planning before we get here. They do have block out certain things, and so there are plans, and there is free will.
So it's almost like the journey is planned, but the destination is not necessarily planned. That's what I
think the destination is planned, but the journey, they give you multiple roads to take, and that's your free will. And there's free will for other people that might intersect those roads. Okay, so go ahead.
No, so it's interesting because I actually feel differently on that.
Okay.
And I feel like it's more of when you choose a life to come into, you're choosing your certain parents, and there's a certain flow of energy in a direction. And I think that you look at that and you see, like, okay, this is going to give certain opportunities for growth. I know that I'm coming into a challenging situation, which means there's going to be a lot of contrast, a lot of things that, will make me struggle at first, but that's going to help propel me forward quickly.
Right.
So I think in that sense that there's a general sense of the energy and the movement, but I don't actually think that there's pre-planned like specific events.
I don't know if I didn't mean like specific. I think some people might be here to learn. Some people might be here to teach. That might be their gig, is to teach or help others. Some people might come in as healers or work in the medical community or something, or other people might come in and take on an affliction, where they will give opportunities to other people in your soul group to learn about compassion. So I don't think it's specifically like, I'm going to come in and when I'm 12 years old, I'm going to break my knee, but it might come in where, okay, I'm going to go to war, or I might have situations in my family where there's abuse or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, and think of it this way too. So when I graduated high school, I wanted to be a nurse. And when I saw what was involved and some of the work that I was not willing to do, I ended up going into being a preschool teacher. And now I work with clients in the spiritual realm. All of that is under the scope of caregiving, right? So I believe like I came in with that predetermined gifts of being a caregiver,
right.
But based on my free will and my choices, I could have utilized many different paths. You know what I mean?
To get to the same end.
Exactly. So I think we come in with like gifts and talents, and the way we're going to put them out to the world. But it's up to us and our free will how we decide that journey, right? So I originally wanted to be a nurse, so I took classes in high school for that. I decided that that wasn't for me because I wasn't going to dissect animals, and that just wasn't an option for me, right? So I went into early childhood education, and I'm still here now being a caregiver, working with children, and getting burnt out with that. You know, I found my way into the law firm in the legal field and realized that wasn't for me. Why? Because I wasn't a caregiver there, right? It was a very sterile environment. And I quickly ended up out of there into this field, and this is where I feel like I fit. But I have to say, had I not had those experiences before, it wouldn't have propelled me to get where I am today, right? So I know that this is what I'm meant to do. I know this is my passion, but there was like a journey that got me to there, right?
And
so some people have illnesses, or some people have challenges or difficulties or struggles, which I think pushes them into the predetermined
or it creates the
plan?
environment for that pre-planning to play out. And you just mentioned something about you came here with certain tools, and it just really it clicked with me, and I think we should mention that because I think we do come here with certain tools that we can utilize for our life's purpose, okay? Some of them might remain dormant if we don't actually go into a particular field or something like that, but other ones, they're there to actually help us move forward. And you see, they say everyone's got a talent. Everyone has something.
gifts.
You know what I mean? And it can just be able to sit and have patience and listen to someone, vent or something.
A good listener,
That,
yeah.
I mean, that really is. That's a tool. It really is.
It's a gift.
And I think obviously we're all given certain tools like laughter and things like that, which create self-healing.
Look at comedians,
Comedians,
right?
they're I mean, it's just
Musicians.
musicians, anything with creativity and things like that. It's just, that's a lot of stuff that brings not only healing to oneself, but to other people.
So I want to throw an idea out there, because when I've been talking to my guys lately, they've been talking about the idea that we're not just like a soul as a being that comes to one body, and then when this body dies, comes to another body, and that it's more of an energy flow. So our soul is like a less focused version of us. And so what happens is when I come down as Nathan, what you're talking about as gifts are actually certain traits that your soul is focusing down into this body from encompassing many lives, many lifetimes, many different people.
Right.
But it's not necessarily like when Nathan dies, Nathan's going to reincarnate into someone else. It's going to be aspects of Nathan
Yes.
mixed with aspects of other lifetimes that create a new personality that come back.
Right, it's a mixture. Although there are cases where actual people have reincarnated into another body and come with the consciousness of that particular person.
Well, I think that I think there's a memory there. So I think that there might be a strong focus from a specific person, but there's going to be other traits too that come in, that flow in. And so I think that it's not necessarily like, James Dean comes back in as another person, but there could be a lot of aspects of him that come in.
What happens if, like, the case of that little boy that when he was like 3 or 4, he was drawing pictures, of fighter pilots and stuff like that, and he came through with all this information that he was reincarnated. He knew the guy's name, who he was.
And there was another recent story about this little boy who was having these dreams of his father beating him. And his father in this lifetime was very concerned about it, and they explored, and they had somebody do a past life regression on him, and he ended up dying at the hands of this father at that time. So he had come in with the memory, and through some work and some therapy, he was able to release that and move forward from it.
Yeah,
So
I think that's what I think is the soul is doing is it's seeing a real chance for expansion there. So it says, I'm going to come back with certain memories of this lifetime. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the same configuration of energy coming back, but what does come back will have those memories because...
So you're saying the soul can reconfigure?
Well, I'm saying that the soul is much greater than we think of it. We think
Yeah,
of it
I
as like,
believe
I die and then Nathan's up in heaven and that's my soul. And the soul is many different people, many different lifetimes with this like...
Oh yeah, it's a multi-dimensional entity
Absolutely.
that lives at the same time in different dimensions.
Yeah, so I'm trying to just take it to that broader perspective and say that the gifts that we come in with are actually just aspects of different lifetimes, different beings that are being focused into this body.
So, and you think like with a reincarnation, what you just mentioned, it's just the particular person picks up with that most recent memory.
it's like an extension of.
Yeah, I think that for some reason that they think that there's a real chance for growth with that. So it allows certain aspects of
almost-
that person to come through.
I almost feel like it's like, you know how in our lifetime we have this lifetime, right? And in this lifetime we have phases and experiences and things that we learn and grow from through challenges and difficulties and struggles. For me, I see the soul has the same lifetime, but instead of like ages like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, I feel like the soul uses each lifetime to add on that, right? And so this is where we have some souls that are really evolved, that are spiritually connected and grounded, and then you have other souls that are really young and youthful, and they need to have their challenges and their mistakes and learn. And I think the soul has this lifetime, and it uses physical lives to really grow from and learn. So we may choose, you know, in this lifetime, I'd like to come in and learn about creativity, or I'd like to come in and learn about abundance and power, or I'd like to come in and learn about creativity and confidence, and I think that's that part of the pre-planned part.
Oh, right, because
But we have so many
but maybe in
ways
the
that
past-
we can learn that.
Right, right. We have that's the free will. We can go in different directions. I mean, you can be a healer, and there's so many different ways you can take that out in this lifetime. But I wonder also, and it seems like if you pick up, are you making up for past karma in a past life? You know, like when you might have just been like very self-centered and narcissistic and stuff like that, and now you decide to come in and to be a healer. I mean, we see that sometimes with people that have had past life reviews, you know,
And they weren't so nice.
right.
I don't know if I,
So I'm saying is that we're all three of us like really, really jerks,
as opposed to now,
as opposed to now. Yeah.
Well, some from the past lives I've seen, I haven't been, but yet.
but no, what I was going to say is I don't believe in karma as something that's like forced upon people.
Gotcha.
I think
I agree.
the idea
Yeah.
behind it is more of like, again, the soul sees a chance for growth.
Yeah.
So the soul might bring certain aspects of a person, of multiple people in different lifetimes that were harsh,
Right.
and they come into an environment that would be nurturing so that they would have a chance
Understand.
to
So it
grow
creates an
and change.
opportunity as opposed to
Absolutely.
payback.
Yeah, it's
right.
more.
You
It's
don't
more.
owe it. It's just it just creates
It's like
another.
a recycling of the energy. Like,
Right.
okay, just like, you know, if you're learning the Rubik's Cube, right? You keep practicing and practicing and practicing and learning, right? And some people it takes longer, and other people it doesn't.
Yeah, and it's
right?
just about the experience. I think it's just about, there's not going to be a lot of growth for a soul that does healing, this lifetime, and the next lifetime comes back and does healing, and the next lifetime does healing, because it's too similar. It's too similar vibration. You're going to recreate a lot of the same aspects.
I don't know about that. I think you can. I think that people can have multiple lives in a row to do the same thing.
It can, but I think that
Because we have to remember too is it's just not our growth. Sometimes we come here and I see it, especially like I'm writing a book on for people who've lost children. People can come in here with very short lifespans and stuff because they want to affect other people, and let's say you can be a healer in the last life, and this time you come over here, and what you do is you decide that you're going to have something happen to you, so other people can learn about healing. And healing can be emotional, spiritual, mental, anything. So it can take on different phases, and you could do that for multiple lifetimes without.
And I'll agree with the sense that, like, I've done some past life regressions, and I have done healing work in multiple lifetimes. I say I, but again, it's focused parts of the soul. But in those lifetimes, there's always the part of me that was, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like taken advantage of, like used and not.
You were used or you were using?
I was used, like I didn't have my self-power. So this lifetime, it's like, you can do some of that healing work,
Right.
but it's really about coming into my own power. So that's where the growth is. The growth isn't
right.
in the healing; it's in the other aspects of it.
Right, but you need that healing thing to realize you know where to put boundaries.
Well, that makes the healing part gives the connection to the other lifetimes
Right.
with those aspects of the soul.
Right. It's kind of, it's complex. I mean, at times it can be simple. Your growth, experiencing, you want to learn about love and compassion and all of its facets and stuff like that. And other times it's really complex with the free will and interacting with other people or in your soul group, playing out all these different type of these plays, the
Scenarios.
scenarios.
Well, even in, I even think about like my past relationship. I was in it for 13 years, right? And I feel like looking back, it was over after 8. And I think like, what happens if I would have left after 8? What about those 5 years, and that I stayed, and what have I learned from that? So it kind of goes along with, it's based on our decisions. And I have to say, I really think a lot of times people get stuck in that fear, and it hinders their growth process, right?
Yep.
And
That's huge. You
the
just said that.
growth, right? And so understanding this, and it's not just this lifetime, it affects the vibration going forward, right? I think could help release a lot of people from, I work with clients where, they really wanted to sing when they were younger, or they wanted to paint, and they had a parent that said, no, you need to go to college, and you need to get a job, and you need to, and so years later, they're sad, and they feel like they're missing something, and they're suffering, right? And so understanding that we have this free will, and have this opportunity to really stand in our power. I think that's like a lesson or have experience that the general population is learning right now. Don't you think empowerment and being in power, there's
yeah.
abuse of power, and then there's people who are becoming empowered because of the abuse of power.
Yeah,
Do you
overcoming
ever-
fear.
do you
So
ever-
do you think that lessons and experiences are on a multi-level and not just an individual soul?
Well, I don't think. Well, I was going to say, just joking, kind of joking, but kind of to the point is, you always have to wonder what would have happened if Hitler got into art school. If he hadn't gotten turned down,
Yeah.
things would have been pretty different. But with that, I don't think. See, I think where we get tripped up is people use the word lesson, and I
Yeah.
think it's about growth.
Yes,
It's not lesson. There's-
experience, right?
Yeah. So there's a. I know we're meaning the same thing, but the word's important
We
because
talk
people
about
interpret
language,
it differently.
absolutely.
Right.
So I think it's about new experiences and bringing new perspectives to the soul, and the soul's bringing new perspectives to the oversoul, and the oversoul's bringing new perspectives. It's different levels of consciousness.
Right.
And do you
Like-
think that like humanity itself goes through a shift? Like we as individually are going through, let's say, empowerment and authenticity and who we are. And don't you think that's happening right now on a global level?
Absolutely.
So it's almost like the intricacies of the universe behind the scenes coming up with this formula and plan that we are born into and part of, but it based on our path and our journey and what we're doing, we're learning that, but on all different levels.
Right. So we have individual growth or learning experiences, whatever. Then we have it as a group, like everyone here
Like
tonight.
our family and our
and all
clusters.
of us,
and,
right? And then you might have it on a cultural level or a national level or a global level. And they can all be interacting at the same time. And it gives a lot of opportunities, and that's what the free will, I know, doesn't
It's
that
just
blow-
amazing,
It's amazing,
like
it
the
can blow your
power,
mind.
right, that formulates all this.
But it gives us power, and I think that's a big thing everyone can learn.
Yeah.
And I think
Empowerment.
empowerment and going beyond fear and growth and taking that next step. And if it resonates with you, I think people can grab hold of it and realize, wait a minute, there is a big picture to this.
Yeah.
Well, and
And-
knowing that you can tap into that we're all part of that human consciousness. So on a certain level, there's a consciousness that's all humans, and then there's another one for the whole earth, different levels.
Right.
And knowing that because you're a part of that, you can tap into any aspect of that when you need to. And
Right, because we got group signs, and I noticed a couple of them when I was out at the symposium, and I mentioned it in my book. So they can send signs to whole groups of people. So we are connected here, and we're connected on the other side, and it's just how we interact with each other is how things play out.
I almost feel like the planet is shrinking too. Do you feel like people are on top of each other? Like on the highway,
it's just
people
because
are
we're
on
so
top of each
close right
other.
now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even in the highway, people are like on top of us, right? Families are on top of each other. I just feel like the energy is really
Because everything's
condensed.
so, information is so free to flow. And so we're all connected by, consciousness, but through thought forms. And it's a lot easier to connect with a thought form that might have been started on the other side of the earth now because you read about it and then you're instantly connected. So now there's like this web throughout consciousness that's growing faster and faster than it ever has before.
And I feel like people are more aware of each other.
I was just going to say that we're more aware.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, just the fact that we're doing this evening.
Good, bad, and indifferent.
Right. I mean, you know, it's just the fact that everyone is here, is curious about it, and they're more open to it now than they were probably, 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
More open to it as a group. You know, before individuals might seek it out on their own, but now whole groups will gather too to talk about stuff like this.
You're seeing a lot of shifts and dynamics. Like, people are learning about manifesting, and they're learning about creating, they're learning about energy, becoming empowered, right? And I think that's like shifting the vibration, right? And I have to say, as we become an example, right, of joy and laughter and having these experiences of abundance and play, I think it's a teacher for other people who are learning, right? And so I feel like, I'm disconnecting from the fix, save, change, make better, right? And more going into the place like, well, what is it that I want? And what do I want to create? And how do I want to work with this energy? And how do I want to play, right? Which makes me feel like I am on a soul level, because I believe we have like these soul families and these soul clusters and the people that are familiar to us. I feel like there are a lot of people who are leaving their soul groups and soul clusters that have become toxic and draining. So, I hear a lot of clients coming in with coworkers that are really negative, and family members that are really negative, or significant others that are really negative and toxic, and they're starting to shift away from that, and it almost feels like they've been with those people for lifetimes on a soul level.
Those people are there to teach them a lesson.
Yeah.
They're still in the soul group.
And they're learning how to become empowered and stand
Set
in
the
that
boundaries.
place.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
One of the things is that I think when we get to the other side, we're going to see some people that played certain roles in our lives here. We're going to say, are you kidding me? You're my best friend over here, and you took on that person, and I think they're in our lives for a reason.
And also, don't forget too that, if you look at the Abraham Hicks talks about the emotional scale, and the idea that, anger is a better emotion to be in than depression. Revenge is a better emotion than depression because it's empowering. So also don't forget that when you're encountering these people that are maybe angry, well, maybe that's a step forward for them. So you can't, don't judge them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Allow them to be that. If you need to remove yourself from that space.
Well, I call them shadow teachers, right? If we're not uncomfortable, we're not going to make any changes, right? So sometimes I say, like, thank them for being the person that they are and the challenges they present, so that you can learn, so that you can be uncomfortable and like you said, contrast, right? And so from there you decide, well, I want something different, or I'd like to experience a better emotion, right? And from there you start taking action. So again,
You
if
get
we
fed
can
up
start
with the situation.
and we can start seeing people as teachers, as opposed to they're doing
Right.
this and this is why I can't make money, or this is why I can't do
That's
what
awesome.
I can do.
Really.
And really being aware of it as a teacher.
Right. I mean, you just turned it all around. These people are like an opportunity for growth, as opposed to just being jerks.
Punished. And right.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And they're forcing you, like, people get fed up on certain things, and they say, I'm going to do this. And when they change because of that particular behavior or something, they start to feel empowered, and they feel much closer to themselves.
Yeah, and
So
I
we have to
to
look at the people as teachers, and that's the role that they play, and just, all right, I get it.
And
Now
remember,
get
we
the hell out of here.
I know. We wouldn't grow unless, like, there was some type of adversity or contrast, right? So somebody losing a job could be very upset and go to that place of bitterness and anger, and I gave my life and dedication, or they could be aware that God or the universe could be pushing them towards something else, right? I had a client who does healing work, and the person who she was renting the space from wanted that space back. And so she had to leave that space, and she took it as that wasn't what she was supposed to do, that the door was closed, and she stopped doing it. And she was sad about it, right? And I saw it as the universe giving her an opportunity to get a bigger space, to grow into her own space, right? And when I presented that idea to her, it was like a light bulb. her whole energy shifted, right? And now she's got this fire and this energy. She's like, I get it now, right? So if we can see this adversity is
Right.
not so much punishment or, being stuck in it,
Right.
and saying, okay, how can I grow from this? And how is God saying, God, there's something better for me, or there's something more? And then we've got to work through the fear, right?
Right.
Of change, and something's going to be different.
I think
right?
that the perspective that she took, though, was probably just a reflection of how she felt inside.
Absolutely, and she totally got that.
Yeah.
Right, it's being aware of it, because I mean, we've heard a lot of the stuff that we just mentioned, but now, when you hear it again and it kind of clicks and it's like, wait a minute, that situation, and I've heard other people, some of the big heavy hitters say that every situation is an opportunity for growth. It's how you look at it.
And it's hard when you're in it.
It is very hard
So
to
it's
win it,
not
but the
like,
people
ding,
that,
I get it.
the people that practice it, you could see their lives just like do a 360 or 180 or whatever, and
Well, I like to
Yeah,
use.
outcome
180,
great.
360, they're right back where they were.
I know, maybe a different place. You never know. In this soul or next life, I don't know.
I like to use Oprah as an example because she had a lot of adversity and a lot of heinous things happened to her in the younger age. Now, she could have succumbed to that, and she could have let that be her story and have been the victim, but she chose to transform it in trusting God and her path, and one thing led to another, and she built this platform so when she wanted to go into the spiritual route, people were supporting her, right? And I feel like she's transformed that energy, and she could have gone a different way. She could have been hurting people and abusing people, right? And I think we have this opportunity, which goes back to pre-planned and destiny and journey, that
will, yep.
we have these choices, right? And it's almost like, had she not, she, let's say, may have passed, and then on the other side realized, God, this is what I could have had, or this is what I could have done, and then, okay, let me go back, and how can I, learn this from a different
Right.
state?
But I don't think there's regret on the other side.
No, no.
but I think
it's
that
it's like, I get it. Let
Yeah.
me go back. And
Yeah.
then, and when people here will say, I'm never going back. That's it. I'm done after this life. And then when we get to the other side, they're like, I see the plan. When can I go back?
And if she went down the path where she became abusive to people herself and went the other route, she probably would have, when she crossed over, said, oh, like I see the other opportunities. I'm going to go back into a tough
Yes,
life.
exactly.
Right, I missed that
Exactly.
opportunity
Yeah.
that I could have really scored on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot of people are going through challenges and difficulties, and if we can see them not as punishment or doing something wrong and internalizing that, because that's what caregivers and healers and light workers, that's what we do, right? If we can see it as, okay, this is an opportunity to really grow here. And I have to say, you don't have to do it alone. I had a lot of support helping me through it, right? And I think that's what this does, right? It gives people
Absolutely.
an opportunity to say, hey, I think that too, and I'm not the only one.
Right.
And I'm not alone in that thought. And you know what? I don't necessarily believe that idea, but you know what? This makes sense to me.
Right, and I'm going to give
right?
this a shot, and I'm going to see this, and then they start to get empowered, and then they can start to make their own choices. And even though someone might figure that not in power or whatever situation they're in, even just the acceptance of the situation they're in can turn things around.
So acceptance, it's huge. That's the first step.
Acceptance, yeah. And grief, that's what you want to get to, right?
And just allow yourself to always look to feel a little bit better. Not to go from being depressed to joyous.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But just always find the thought that's a little bit better, a little bit
Right.
better, a little bit better. Before you know it, you've moved up
yeah,
the scale.
it's like a little smile, a grin, a smile, and a laughter.
Yeah.
You just keep working
Minor
on it.
adjustments.
But just know that it can be done. And to everyone that'll be viewing this later on, want to thank you for joining us. And hey, if you want us to come out to your location and do a live setup, we'd love to do that. And continue to send in your questions, and we look forward to interacting with you.
Yeah, and we hope that you got something that you can use from this. Take the ideas, take the concepts, see how you can apply it to your life. Continue the conversation. Talk to your guides, talk to your friends and family, see what other information can come through.
Are you going to do it again?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're interested, let us know.
And always consider the source.
That's the first time we ever did the ending